Those Were the Days is filmed before a live internet audience.
Evildoers beware. I am TVsTravis, here to protect your eardrums from the sinister static of boredom. Prepare to be astonished, amazed, and perhaps a bit bewildered as we leap headfirst into the audio abyss. Spoon! But I can't do this by myself. No, serving up the hoagie of justice requires more than my immense podcasting powers alone. I need super friends. The mustard on this pastrami sandwich of truth, it's Steven.
Allow me to introduce you to me. Some heroes may try to wow you with their muscles, bamboozle you with their cleverness, even amaze you with their flights, hops, large jumps, and all-around sky-high antics. But not me. My name is the Lobe, and my brain is 3 times the size of a normal brain with 4 times the surface area, giving me superior intellect. Doctors are mystified, stupefied, unable to establish a treatment plan. Allow me to demonstrate my prowess. The square root of 4 is 2. 1 mile is 5280 feet long, and I feel dizzy. Does anyone else smell toast?
The side of potato chips that crunch out corruption, it's Audie.
Tonight, we are podcasters. We are the voices that carry you through your mundane lives of normality. Our mics are the tools that we wield like a knight with his sword on the battlefield, riding his trusty steed and ready to slay any would-be boredom that might encroach on your daily life. The computers and recording applications are like the delivery systems of all things that get delivered right to your doorstep. Our voices are the ammunition and the weapons of podcatchers that deliver our dulcet tones to your delicate ears, that translate our words into the emotions that penetrate your hearts and minds. And once our words have worked their way into your life, your mind, your heart, your soul, then you will know that justice that has been entertained by your most favorite of podcasters. The podcasting team that is Those Were the Days. Fork!
And the lemon wedge in the iced tea of integrity, it's Amy.
And he said, "Do you want to do a podcast?" And I said, "Yes, baby." And then he said, "Do you want to do it with a bunch of guys?" And I said, "Yes, baby." And then he said, "Do you want to talk about old TV?" And I said, "Yes, baby."
Okay, Amy wins. Amy
Yep.
wins.
You're in the belt this week. Perfect.
If you'd like to tell your friends about an episode of this show, use this one.
So we are wrapping up our Fox Kids afternoon block of programming by talking about The Tick. The Tick was a cartoon that ran from 1994 and ran 3 seasons. It was originally created by cartoonist Ben Edlund as a comic strip in 1986. He made it part of a newsletter in a Boston area comic book store.
Oh, it sure is New England Comics.
Mhm.
I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So it became its own comic book in 1988, I believe. There were some spin-offs for it. 1994, Fox commissioned and made The Tick, the animated series. And that's probably the most well-known version of The Tick. There were 2 live-action series. One came out in 2001 and another one again from Amazon in 2016. But we're talking about the animated Tick.
Yes.
So first, what I want to know is, and I'm going to start with Steven, do you have any history with The Tick?
I watched maybe 1 episode when I was younger. I don't have much of a relationship. I have more of a relationship with the most recent iteration that was on Amazon Prime, because I watched that and my wife was sitting with me and said, "This show is dumb," until she watched a whole episode. I was like, "Can we watch another one?" So it's not much different from Tick the cartoon. They both have very much the same vibe. But no, with the cartoon itself, I've only have a passing knowledge.
Okay. Audie, how about you?
Oh, I definitely was all about the Tick. I couldn't tell you any particular thing or episode, but just watching this was like, oh yeah, I remember watching this. Oh yeah, this was fun.
Amy, how about you?
So we've been over this several times in that I am not necessarily the biggest superhero fan.
Sure.
And even this is very much a send up of all of that. I was not really super on my radar. My friends in high school, um, because I hang out with all guys, they were obsessed with this. I believe that one of their quotes in our senior yearbook is just spoon, I
Oh,
believe.
sure. Mhm.
Um,
Definitely.
you know, that sort of thing. But I may have watched an episode or two, but not enough to remember.
Mhm.
I'm like familiar, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely remember this show. I very much enjoyed it. It was started in 1994, ran to 1996. They did 3 seasons. As I said, created by Ben Edlund. It was almost a bit of a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reunion in terms of the voice cast. So the Tick,
Mm-hmm.
who is a roughly 7 foot tall, 400-pound superhero based on the Tick. He's just a big guy in blue spandex with little antenna.
Mhm.
He is nigh invulnerable and super strong, and that's kind of the extent of his backstory. They don't actually give a backstory for him. And in every iteration that he's had, it's been a different kind of backstory that they do give you, what little bit they do. So I always thought that was kind of funny. But he was voiced by Townsend Coleman, who did the voice of Michelangelo in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm.
Bunch of other voice acting stuff he'd done. So the Tick lives in the city, and he is a superhero. He was assigned to the city. So in the first episode of the series, he talks about how he went to a superhero like assignment convention in Reno, Nevada, and that was where superheroes would go to get assigned to whatever city they were going to work in. And
Sure.
he got assigned to the city. And when he gets there, he meets his friend and future sidekick, Arthur. Um, Arthur was an accountant who found or bought a moth costume and decided that he wanted to live the superhero life. So he quit his job as an accountant and eventually meets the Tick, and they team up. He was voiced in this season by Mickey Dolenz.
No.
Heck yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
I couldn't believe that when I saw that.
Yeah, after this season, he was replaced by Rob Paulson. Rob Paulson, who was the voice of Raphael in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as well as hundreds
Just
of other
countless
things.
Yeah.
other things.
Mm-hmm.
He took over for that. We also had other characters that made appearances throughout the series were Deflator Mouse, which
Mhm.
is a Batman spoof. He's just, instead of being, a great detective and courageous and all that, Deflator Mouse is like the opposite of all those things.
Mm-hmm.
He was voiced by Cam Clark, who was the voice of Leonardo in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and
Amazing.
hundreds of other things.
Yeah.
They also had Sewer Urchin,
Yes.
which was he was the character was voiced by Jess Harnell, and they did a spoof of Dustin Hoffman's character in Rain Man.
Yeah.
And he has superpowers of really being stinky. That's basically what the Sewer Urchin is for. And there was also American Maid, who was a spoof and send up of kind of Wonder Woman and Captain America. And she was voiced by Kay Lenz.
Top notch
And-
naming for American Made. Like I giggled
Mhm.
really loud when that happened. I was
Yep,
like, oh, that was so
American
good.
Made is great. Now, here was an interesting thing, and I didn't know the reasoning behind this until researching for this episode. In the 2001 live action series, we get the Tick and Arthur, but American Made is renamed as Captain Liberty,
Mm-hmm.
and Deflator Mouse is renamed as Batmanuel,
I love
and
that. That was
which is a
great.
great rename.
That's
It's
wonderful.
awesome. He's basically a very much the same character, but he is Latino. He's played by Nestor Carbonell, and it's fantastic.
Nestor is amazing in that particular role too.
He's
owns
so
it.
good
It's
at it.
great.
What I didn't know was the reason why they made the change to the names, and then I found out it's because Ben Edlund did not secure the rights to the names of some of the characters in this
Mhm.
series, and Saban Entertainment made the animated series. They had the rights for
Oh.
Deflator Mouse and American Made and Sewer Urchin, so he couldn't use them. So he basically just remade the characters with different names. I mean,
Yeah.
it worked out. Like it was a good change, so I'm fine with that. But
Look, sometimes a writer does their best work backed into a corner. Like, I dare you to
Sure.
make this harder for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Now, as with anything animated, voice actors do a lot of different roles. So Cam Clark was Deflator Mouse, but he also played in this episode. We saw him as Fishboy, the lost prince of Atlantis, who can't swim. By the way, that's why he's got the floaties. Townsend Coleman played the Tick. He also played characters that were brought over from the comic series, like Man Eating Cow, Eyebrows Mulligan, and Lava Man.
Sure.
Mickey Dolenz was Arthur, and his another character he played wasn't in this episode, but I think he's in the first episode of the series. Is Captain Lemming, whose superpower is jumping off of buildings.
I get it.
We had Jess Harnell as Sewer Urchin. He also played characters like there was a villain he played called the Breadmaster. He was the Human Bullet. We also saw him in this episode as Mighty Agrippa, Roman god of the aqueduct.
Sometimes.
Yes. Rob Paulson was Arthur. He was also Brainchild, which was a villain. Crusading Chameleon is a great one that he played. Captain Mucilage, the Forehead. There was some great. And then this episode we have one of my favorite supervillains because it's just such a silly villain. So this episode starts off: the Tick, Arthur, Deflator Mouse, and Sewer Urchin are in the car, and they're heading somewhere. We don't know where at first, but he's stuck on the on ramp, like trying to get onto
You
the
started
highway.
after the interview, which
Mhm.
led our
Oh,
first
right.
great Tick one-liner.
Yeah.
That tickled me to no end. He says, "Of course, well, goodness, I want to protect the Earth. That's where all my stuff is." And
So there were-
It was at that moment when I started watching this show that I realized that Space Ghost and the Tick are in a Venn diagram together somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and then just smeared over the entire thing is the Venture Brothers.
Yes.
They
Yes.
just
Mhm.
yeah.
So Ben Edlund actually wrote
Yeah.
a couple episodes of the Venture Brothers. He
Yes.
worked on
Oh,
that show.
okay. Makes sense.
So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, the Tick he's 7 foot tall, 400 pounds, super strong, but also has this childlike innocence to him, and like everything is just incredibly interesting to him. I think Patrick Warburton actually said something to the effect of what was fun about playing him was his past is a mystery, so everything that he looks at or perceives can be brand new, and he gets really, really excited and intrigued by something that's just a commonality for everybody else, and that's funny. He's like a child, and his childlike attitude of discovering things, and that's what I love about the Tick. Is like just everything is he takes a lot of there's a lot of cues from Adam West's Batman as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's an episode where the Tick and Arthur's microwave breaks, and so Arthur's like, well, okay, we'll just get a new one tomorrow, and the Tick responds to that with, great chum, this sounds like a job for legal tender. And they're gonna go shopping. Like, it's just that kind of stuff that just made him great. So there were episodes that did open with him being interviewed by somebody, and that was just a chance for them to like riff basically and have fun with that. And it's amazing. And the Tick does often go on these inspirational speeches that make no sense whatsoever. This one was one of them, and I really, really enjoyed that.
It also cracked me up the way it was animated. It was just like, we don't need a background, just put them in black. It's fine.
It's so
Yep,
good.
exactly.
It's
Oh,
very
yeah.
like inside the actor's studio.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
It was
So-
Charlie. What's his name? Charlie Rose.
Oh, like
where they had
Charlie
the
Rose,
table
yeah.
and the black
Uh-huh,
background.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So after that little opening, so they're sitting in the car, they're waiting to get onto the highway.
I love the
Arthur
audio.
Arthur is incredibly nervous. Now Arthur is a character who is he's a nervous wreck all the time.
Sure.
And so it's perfect that he's the one driving the car and is afraid to get on the on ramp. And meanwhile, he's got everyone else being like, "Go, no, wait, no, go, no, wait, go,
Right.
go, no."
This is
and
the
he's
stuff
freaking
of
out
my
about it.
nightmares. Like, I was having an anxiety attack for
Yeah.
him because I've been in this situation before. It's like, only one of us is driving. Shut up.
Yeah. Real.
By the way, so the Tick's catchphrase, his call to action is spoon, which he came up with while eating a bowl of drama flakes one morning, and
Sure.
decided that. Arthur's call is not the face, not the face. Kind of gives you a good insight into their two personalities.
The one
So they're
episode
on
of
their
The
way.
Tick I did watch was the one where he
Mhm.
came up with spoon. That's the one I remember.
Okay.
It's when we need a war cry, Arthur. He came up with spoon that day. That's where my real association with the show is. That's the one. That's the one
Mhm.
episode.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good
one.
episode.
Yeah.
All of season 1 is fantastic. That's mostly what I remember is season 1. So they're on their way to a superhero nightclub. The Tick heard about it or something. They're heading there.
In
And he's
Arthur's sister's car.
Right.
yes.
Okay.
They pass a car on the highway that has our villain in it. We don't know that yet. He's just talking to himself in the car. He was great. He was so much fun.
So good.
We'll get back to him. So they're heading for, and it's the Comet Club. Superheroes welcome, which I love. Deflator Mouse is like, hey, there's something you don't see every day. Because none of the superheroes in this show are useful. at all.
No.
No. Not at all.
They're just, but none of the villains are any good either. So it's a balance thing.
Mhm.
So they get to the club, and of course they come up to the doorman, who is Doorman. He has super doorman powers, and he checks their IDs, which was a very funny. I love that scene. Oh, I think it might be in my other tights. The Tick's reaction to that is great. Spelling America with a K, are we?
Yes, that was cracked me up. I love that.
So they show their IDs, they get inside, but the doorman senses that Arthur is not a superhero, but a sidekick. No sidekicks allowed inside the
Mhm.
club. You have to go to the sidekick lounge.
And this, I'm like, what we do in the shadows just lifted this entire part. They just lifted this whole thing for the familiars room.
Oh, yeah. Oh, totally. By the way, Doorman was voiced by Maurice LaMarche, another one of my favorite
Nice.
Oh, wow,
voice
yeah.
actors. So they send Arthur to the sidekick lounge. Meanwhile, the Tick, Sewer Urchin, and Deflator Mouse go inside the club, and immediately Deflator Mouse is like heading off to hit on the ladies, and the Tick runs into a friend of his. That friend is Big Shot. Now, in this episode, we see him after he's gone to therapy.
Right.
So he's calmed himself down. He's wearing a sweater. He's trying to remain calm. He actually was in the pilot episode, the first episode, and his Big Shot persona, which was basically just he wore something akin to the Punisher, but he had a big wooden chest strapped to his back that was just full of guns that he carried around all the time.
Nice.
And he at the end of that episode, the Tick tells him to seek professional help.
Nice.
So that was the first time we saw him, and this is the next time we see him. So he's sought professional help, and now he's having everybody keep their anger in the happy box.
Nice.
And so the Tick runs into him. He gets introduced to a couple of his friends, mentions that his name is the Tick, and they're all like, oh no, oh, Barry's not going to like that. And we get, who's Barry? Cut to a guy on a motorcycle dressed in a brown Tick costume, which I thought was clever because originally the Tick was supposed to be brown,
Sure.
but they decided that blue looked better in print.
Oh,
So they went with that. So the fake Tick is brown. So meanwhile, Arthur goes to the sidekick lounge, which is just a trailer around the outside.
It's like a shed out back. It's
This
good.
is so
It's a
great.
shed. He goes inside, and there's 3 sidekicks in there: a dog, an orangutan, and just a young kid reading a wrestling magazine.
Yeah.
Wrestle, wrestle, wrestle.
Wrestle, wrestle,
Yep.
wrestle.
With Arthur just sitting in there drinking a beer. And I loved the orangutan voiced by Jim Cummings.
Yes. Yeah, you can
Mhm.
tell Jim Cummings from a mile away.
Oh, yeah. So Arthur's stuck out there. The Tick is in the club when Barry shows up. And what a great entrance.
All right, wait,
right.
hold on though,
Mhm.
because we have to talk about Deflator Mouse's flirting for a hot second.
Yes, we do.
Please do.
Because what was her name? Was it just Poodle Girl or Poodle Woman, whatever?
Yeah, she doesn't get a name, but
No,
she's just
and
like a
gun
giant
guys.
poodle gun.
Yeah, and so she's got what's in the poodle gun? Something for me. And she turns at him and she fires like a dozen teacup poodles at him.
Mm-hmm.
And I cackled.
Oh
And
yeah.
like in no small part because my sister has two teacup poodles, and so I'm like, yeah, this is good. That's a good weapon. I like that.
Yep.
Yes. And then when they are called back, and so they're no longer all over him, someone else walks up and he starts to flirt with her, only to see that it's American made. And they had apparently a romance at some point in the past. So every time the two of them are in an episode, it's just like the bickering ex couple.
Yep.
So and we do cut back to our guy in the car, who's still talking to himself about his conversation with somebody else. It's just great every single time. So then Barry shows up, and I just loved Barry's entrance. He kicks in the door, and Barry, also voiced by Jim Cummings, and he says, "Who's the jerk? Where's the jerk who calls himself the Tick?" The Tick just stands up and says, "I am that jerk." And they are Barry is upset because he wants to be the Tick, and the Tick is like, "Well, but I'm the Tick."
Mhm.
And before a fight can start, Big Shot calms everybody down. Put your anger in the happy box. So the rest of the episode is effectively the Tick versus the Tick, with Barry using his kinetic generator and his shield to try and crush the Tick.
Mm-hmm.
Arthur hates being in the sidekick lounge, goes in to use the restroom, and which is inside the building. Notices, hey, here's the door going into the club. But while that's going on, our villain has shown up. Our villain
Mhm.
with the
Mhm.
greatest name of any villain
Yes.
to ever name a villain.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because he is the evil midnight bomber. What bombs at midnight?
What bombs at midnight? I was just losing it. That's one of my favorite uses of English. Like when it's incorrect,
Yes.
Yeah.
is the yeah. He's the guy. What does the thing? I love
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
I love it so
And
much.
that character is burned into my brain and lives rent free there. I will use, like, there's just something about, like, because he's always talking to himself, and I says to him, "Yeah, baby, yeah," and it's
So
so good.
So great.
So good. I love a good
And the
villain.
name, the name, the evil midnight bomber. What bombs at midnight? I'm trying to find who did his voice, and I can't find it. Although apparently Dan Castanella was in this episode too.
Oh wow. This guy
So we
reminded me
gotta-
a lot of, is it Crazy Harry from the Muppets
Yes.
with the dynamite?
Yes.
Had a
Yes.
whole lot of Crazy Harry DNA in
Mhm.
him.
Actually, thinking about that,
Um,
might have been Dan Castanella.
you
Yeah.
know, that could have been.
It could
Yeah.
have been. I think you're probably right.
He runs into Arthur in the restroom, which is a great. I love when he runs into him and he just turns around. He's like, "Hi."
Yes. So
And he's
good.
trying to hold it together too. It's great when Arthur confronts him and he's trying to, like, put on but he just breaks partway
Yeah.
through it.
Mm-hmm.
He just can't. He's got to be the evil midnight bomber. What bombs at midnight?
Yeah.
Which is, it's like a Tribe Called Quest. You got to say the whole thing.
Yep.
It's his entire name. So he runs out into the club. He pulls a smoke bomb, and then runs out into the club and just starts setting his bombs everywhere, which just say "bomb" on them.
Just
And he
yeah.
just sticks them on the wall and hits the button and he's putting them like every 2 feet on the wall,
Yeah.
and nobody notices.
None of the superheroes notice.
No, they're
Not
so,
a
they're so
single-
comfortable in their weird boozy bar club. They're like, nobody
Sure.
could possibly get in here and cause a ruckus. We're superheroes. They're not.
Also,
the
it
Mad
is
Bomber.
their night off. So
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
you know.
They'd have to do overtime,
Um,
bill it differently. It's
yeah.
a whole mess.
But when Arthur leaves the bathroom and comes back into the club, the doorman's senses go off.
Yeah.
So he goes and he gets Arthur. Arthur is
The
trying to get sewer
doorman's
urchin.
senses go off for Arthur, the sidekick,
Yes.
not the supervillain putting
Yeah.
bombs everywhere.
There's a
Again,
I
priority.
mean,
these are
the
not-
line between supervillain and superhero is just so thin.
Yeah, it's really hard to
You
tell.
know,
But sidekicks,
Not
though,
wrong.
that's a totally
that's
different thing.
different.
Yeah,
That's
Mhm.
very
different.
different. They
Absolutely.
barely have powers. I mean, come on.
One of the sidekicks, by the way, the dog, was voiced by Pat Fraley, aka the
They're
voice
so
of
good.
Krang. So another
Nice.
Teenage Mutant Ninja
Nice.
Turtles. I loved him. I've been doing this for 46 years. Yeah, them's dog
Dog
years.
years.
Everything the ape says. I don't know who he was
Mhm.
trying to be, but did candy bar
I'm afraid-
65 cents.
Is he nuts? And I just like he's got Art at one point. He's got Arthur like upside down, and Arthur's just like, "I'm afraid, and I would like to leave."
Yeah.
that is a running gag with Arthur of
just
"You
good.
terrify me."
Yeah, you
Arthur is
terrify
my
me.
spirit
That's what it
animal.
was.
Like I just
He's
everything
really
Arthur
good.
does like that. Yep, that checks out. That's me.
Yep.
There's an episode. The episode right after this is the Tick versus the Uncommon Cold, and
Mhm.
and the episode revolves around the Tick has a cold, and Arthur goes next door to give some mail to the next door neighbor who happens to be an interdimensional like slug demon thing named Thrakkerzog who wants to take over the world, and he's going to do so by cloning the Tick, but he needs to grab Arthur first, clone him so that the evil Arthur clone can get a tissue sample of the Tick in order for Thrakkerzog to clone an army of ticks. Thrakkerzog also has a roommate. It's just a random guy. Like at one point, the guy just walks out into the room, and Thrakkerzog is like, "I'm sorry, are we being too loud?" And the guy's like, "No, I just want to get a snack," and he just grabs a bag of chips and walks away. But at
Listen,
one point,
man,
that
times
guy's
are
standing
tough.
there. Yeah, and he even says that he's like, he's a bit weird, but he's always on time with his half of the rent.
He's a bit.
But at one
weird.
point, that guy's just standing there talking to Arthur, and Arthur tells him, "You terrify me." So it doesn't take much to terrify Arthur. So the doorman is trying to get Arthur out of the club. Sewer Urchin is trying to stop him. The evil Midnight Bomber, what bombs at midnight, planting all his bombs. And the Tick is fighting Barry, which is a great confrontation because all Barry wants is to be known as the Tick, and the Tick refuses at all.
Yeah.
I
He's
think
like,
at one
say
point
uncle. And he's like, okay, uncle? No, say I can be the Tick. Oh. Barry.
That was so
And what was the one thing he said? I can't change my name. It's on all my
It's
stationery.
on all my
Right.
stationery. I loved it. That was so good.
So Arthur eventually Sewer Urchin uses his stink powers to overpower the doorman, so that Arthur can tell Tick about
Who
the evil
has a
Midnight Bomber, what
bomb
bombs at
on
midnight.
his chest.
Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, he doesn't know what's going on most of the
What do
time.
they look like? Like that? Ah.
They've got 20 seconds to midnight, so he runs around, grabs them all. I did love the gag of grabbing the air freshener
Oh,
off
that
the
was
wall
so funny.
and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
going back to put it
Yeah.
back. Runs out the back door of the club and throws them all away onto the sidekick lounge.
Yep.
Midnight hits, all the bombs explode, and the kid reading the wrestling magazine just says, "I quit," and walks away. The Tick defeats Barry. Arthur defeats the evil Midnight Bomber, what bombs at midnight, and we go home with Deflator Mouse and Sewer Urchin bickering like children in the backseat of the car.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore. This is one of the top rated episodes of the series, and for good reason. This one's just a lot of fun, and I think it's a good introduction to the show. Like if you don't have a big connection to it, this gives you exactly what this show is, which is a satire of superheroes, and they're fantastic. I absolutely adore like the whole idea of just a send up of the ridiculousness of superhero comics in general is always funny to me, but this is done. This is the type of satire that works for me because you can tell Ben Edlund loved superhero comics and he liked
Yeah.
comic books, and so he knew the right thing. It's like Edgar Wright doing his movies and knowing just how to do satire right.
Yeah, there's clearly a love of the genre
Mhm.
in here. Like the way it's written where everything's over the top like Batman, but you don't feel like it's making fun of it. You feel like it's
No,
joining in the joy of making up superpowers and weird people, but it's never punching down at superheroes as some kind of lesser form of entertainment. It's really just
Right.
going
Yeah.
like, I love it and I just want to be a part of it in any way I can. So here's my story and here's my ridiculous hero and let's have some fun. I'm all about it. I think it's great.
I would say if there's a difference between poking fun and making fun, this definitely pokes fun at it.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's
And
a
I
good
mean
way to put it.
it's a good way to start, right? In the like, okay, if we take that superheroes can exist and people can have superpowers, some people are just gonna have really crap superpowers. Like that's just the way it's
Mhm.
going to be.
Yeah.
And that's always good.
Yeah.
So some of the other characters that were in this show, I have to give some of these names and some of these descriptions because these are fantastic. These are the superheroes. Okay, we
Mhm.
mentioned Big Shot uses powerful guns and weaponry. In the pilot episode, we met, and I think we only ever see him in his room, but he was Bipolar Bear, and he was a superhero dressed as a polar bear with bipolar disorder. And I think the gag was he wanted to go out and help stuff, but it was just so hard to get out of bed.
It's a
Oh,
lot.
that's
yeah.
heavy. That is not a 21st
Lord.
century gag.
We had the crusading chameleon can change his color to match his surroundings, stick to walls, but he has trouble with things like bricks.
Sure.
Yeah, of course.
Captain Lemming jumps off of rooftops. His is great because his one appearance, he jumps off a rooftop, he falls out of frame, and all you hear him say is, "Come on, Spine, work with me." Let's see. The doorman we met, Eclair, flies and fires lightning energy from her eyes. Superheroine of Belgium, named after the
Yeah.
French word for lightning, not the pastry.
Sure.
Nice.
We met Fishboy, the young misplaced prince of Atlantis.
Which is
Human Bullet.
also like that is a Venture Brothers character. He's
Mhm.
one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
old school things. He's a Mormon and he goes door to door asking if you've heard the good word. And it's
Oh
just
my
very
gosh.
funny. And so I was like, oh, he got all grown up in Venture Brothers.
Human Bullet was one. He can survive being fired. He's got a cannon in his backyard, and he just
Mhm.
hops into that and has his sidekick fire the cannon. And he, there's an episode of that. There's an episode that has a giant dinosaur creature that they're fighting, and Tick and Arthur have to go to Human Bullet's house in the middle of the night, and, like wake him up and get him to fire the cannon. But he, of course, it takes forever because he was asleep. He's in his pajamas, but then he puts on his bullet helmet. Mighty Agrippa, Roman god of the aqueduct. Plunger Man. His superpower is he can unclog toilets.
Sure.
Santa
Good
Claus,
job.
the joyous incarnation of Christmas. Santa Claus makes an appearance in this, which is a great episode because the villain in that episode is Multiple Santa, which is just a guy who can create multiple copies of himself in battle, and he does crimes dressed as Santa Claus. And it has a fantastic moment where there's hundreds of Santa clones, and they're coming from, I think, a dam or something like that in like a giant wave. And the Tick yells out, "It's a Yule tide!"
Oh, Lord.
We had the civic-minded five, consisted of Captain Mucilage, the carpeted man, who just generates static electricity wearing a suit of made of carpet. Feral Boy, the four-legged man. And guess what his superpower is?
Mhm.
He has four legs. And Jungle Janet.
Name by itself is good.
That one, there's an episode early on where the civic-minded five show up, and Carpeted Man ends up passing out from overheating because he's wearing carpet
Yeah.
in the summer.
Sure.
This is just
But he won't
people sitting
won't take it
around with
off.
like a list of words on one page and another list of words, rolling dice to build character names, and then going, "What would they do? What's their
It's
power?"
totally like the Decency Squad was another superhero group with led by Captain Decency.
Perfect.
Of course.
We also had Johnny Polite. His superpower is politeness.
Oh my gosh.
Some days that is a superpower.
Yeah.
It really is. And I also loved the villains in this. There's an episode with the villain of Chairface Chippendale.
Yes,
Whose head is-
I remember that.
His head is literally a chair.
Yes.
Oh, I remember
And-
him. Yep.
He wants to carve his name into the moon. So he has a giant
Mhm.
laser to carve his name into the moon. He gets stopped partway through, so it's just CHA. And what I loved is later on there's a later episode where this kid who has a giant brain encased in glass named Brainchild tries to pull the moon into the earth, and it still has CHA written on it as
Nice.
he's
Yeah.
pulling the moon down.
Yeah, I think the rest of the
Continuity.
series, anytime the moon's in the background, you still
Yeah.
see that.
That's
Um,
wonderful. That's somebody who cares.
There was Lumberjane was another supervillain. The semi-billionaire. Mentioned multiple Santa. I loved Chairface Chippendale. Thrakkerzog was a fun one. That episode is great because the Tick can never remember his name. They're having like
Sure.
there's a fight going on the roof of the building. Oh, that was another great part in that particular episode is they go to have the fight in the apartment and the roommate comes out and is like, "Are you guys going to fight in here?" He goes, "Well, what I do on my half of the apartment is my business." He's like, "Yeah, but we won't get our cleaning deposit back." He's like, "Oh, the cleaning deposit. I forgot about that." So they go to the roof to have the fight. And the whole time they're on the roof, the Tick can't remember Thrakkerzog, so he keeps calling him things like four cats and a frog, laxative log. And Thrakkerzog, the character of Thrakkerzog, which is this giant like goo gel demon thing, but has this really posh British accent, and he's very polite and very well spoken. He's just getting more and more frustrated. He's like, "Thrakkerzog, Thrakkerzog," and finally the Tick just looks at him and says, "Susan." "Oh, now you're doing it on purpose. How juvenile."
Oh, that's amazing.
It's just the humor in this was so good. I loved Chairface Chippendale shows up a lot. Barry Hubris, by the way, is Barry's name.
Perfect.
Barry Hubris.
Mhm.
That's good.
Did you have a favorite moment of this episode? Like something that just made you was there anything in this because it sounds like you enjoyed it. Was there anything that made you like, "All right, I'm going to come back and watch some more"? Are you going to watch more? I guess is the first question. Stephen, I'll start with you. Would you watch more of The Tick, and what maybe was the tipping point for you?
I love this style of humor. And I realize how unique, in some ways, the joy for this style of humor is. As I watched my wife also watch the same thing I watched while I'm laughing real hard, and she's like, "What is this?" And then I'm remembering like trying to get her to watch Space Ghost while I'm rolling on the floor in tears, and she's just like,
Mhm.
"What are we laughing at?" Is that not funny? It was the same interaction. I loved it. It checked a box for me. It was just like watching those old Space Ghost episodes and laughing so hard. It's probably like the Tick's little aside jokes that just kind of come out. I don't know if there's one in particular. The one at the beginning with where the Earth is where all my stuff is just crushed me right out of the gate. And I mean, Stephanie and I've watched the new Tick together, the one with Peter Serafinowicz plays the Tick,
Yep.
and it is really good on its own. And there's a joke in that one, just to share this aside story, that we use this today. He meets a guy, he goes to a party, knocks on the door, dude opens and says, "Well, look at you." And he just goes, "Impossible." And every time somebody says, "Well, look at you," I'm just like, "Impossible." And that's our little gag. And it's just, it's stuff like that that makes the Tick a treasure for me. It is the childlike joy of everything is new. I'm really glad you said it that way, because it really makes the whole thing make sense and just makes the character come into full focus. Like, oh, that's what we've got. Somebody just super excited to do good who has no idea how anything works. That's a very long-winded answer to say, yes, I would love to continue watching this show. This would be one I would happily put on, while I'm doing something, just like I would do any other YouTube video. Like, let me just put this on and go do some work. I love it. I'm in.
Yeah. All right, Audie, how about you?
Yeah, I dug this episode. I don't think I'll watch anymore just because I've had my fill and I'm good with it. It's, but it's definitely like Yeah, I dug it. The thing that got me again was at the beginning with the interview and the very end. After Tick's done his rant, he's grabbed the camera, done all this, and then Arthur just goes, "I can fly."
Fly.
It's
That's
very
it.
good.
And
Very
then
good. There's a lot of those moments, by the way. There's the first
uh,
few episodes, I think, started with those kind of interviews. They throw them in every
Nice.
once in a while.
and we didn't mention it. The theme song too is just
Mhm.
Yeah.
music and
Oh.
scatting and just like
Yeah.
You-
and I thought about it, and this hit me is how much I immediately thought of Kronk in Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, that came out in 2000, and then the TV series with Patrick Warburton, who played
Yeah.
Kronk, was like the next
Yep.
year. I'm like, it's no wonder.
I had forgotten to
Oh, yeah.
mention the scatting. You put scat at the beginning of any show, and I'm like, I'm curious. I'm like, what are we doing?
Mhm.
I'm like, what? I would listen to this all day. Let's go.
It's a real good opening theme and opening credit sequence. And I love like mixing in, there's a little yell at one point and they
Mhm.
time it just right with
Mhm.
the floating head yelling at the tick, which was from all the scenes from the opening credits are from the first 4 episodes of the show. So that was Mr. Mental, who was mentally controlling the tick during that particular episode. Because the other great thing about the tick, Thrakkerzog wants to clone him because he'd make the perfect soldier. He's super strong, nigh invulnerable, and has a teeny tiny little brain.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
Mhm.
Amy, how about you? Would you watch more of this?
So it was good. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. But because I have seen where this DNA sort of winds up, it just really made me want to watch the Venture Brothers, quite
I mean,
frankly.
that's fair.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
sure.
where I wound up at the end of all this. I was like, man, I should rewatch the Venture Brothers again. But I mean, it was good. Like I enjoyed it. If someone was like, "Hey, let's watch The Tick," I'd be like, "Okay,
Mhm.
sure."
You you
Um,
you particularly should watch episode 5, The Tick versus the Breadmaster, because
yeah,
it is
all
a
right,
supervillain
Mm.
who
I'm in.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
his whole
I can
thing
get
was
there.
he was kicked out of culinary school.
Sure.
And so decided to go on baking crimes.
I mean, that
Yeah.
seems good. But I will say, like the thing with the poodle gun, it wrecked me. I thought it was the funniest thing in the world, and it was just the best. It was the best response to unwanted male attention I've ever seen in media.
I mean, you can carve off
Oh,
24 minutes like that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's nothing.
Yeah,
24
yeah.
easy
yeah.
peasy.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. The Breadmaster is voiced by Roddy McDowell.
Oh, all
So
right.
Okay.
Oh, Lord.
All right.
it's even
Okay.
better.
All right.
You got him.
Fine.
Yeah, this is one of
Put it on
those
right
that
now.
is kind of a comfort. It's a comfort show for me. Like I remember so much of this. I remember the evil midnight bomber, what bombs at midnight. The first episode, the villain is the Idea Men, and they're just a bunch of guys they're wearing these metal masks, and they're stealing stuff around town. And anytime they're either questioned or like the cameras are on them or something, they start talking, but you can't understand anything they say because of the masks. So all you hear, and they make a joke about, like, they constantly are making jokes about it. And they're super villains, but they were just a bunch of dudes that wanted to steal money so they wouldn't have to work anymore. That's their whole
gosh.
motivation.
I feel that.
Like,
Yeah, I could
Mhm.
get
yeah,
there.
Sure.
Yeah.
like there's so many good ones. There was the Tick versus El Cid, which is he just wanted to plants to take over the world.
Sure.
Like there's all sorts of stuff like that. The Tick versus Brainchild is the one I just watched. And I really enjoyed that one. So this is one of those shows for me. It's just comfort. Yeah, this was a lot of I debated over a few different shows to do for this episode. I almost made you guys watch The Adventures of Sam and Max Freelance Police.
Mhm.
Because anyone that knows me knows how much I enjoy Sam and Max.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't pass up doing the Tick.
It's
was
really
just
And
good.
you
too
shouldn't.
It was a good
much fun.
pick.
Good
Yeah.
choice.
So that is wrapping up our Fox Kids afternoon, this was a real fun one for me. I had a great time revisiting some of these shows because I watched a lot of this block of programming growing up.
Oh yeah.
No.
So for
Same.
me, yeah, this was just near and dear to my heart. And I mean, you kicked us off with the best one, Batman the Animated Series. You can't go
Yeah.
wrong And Amy suffered through not one, but two superhero shows with us.
Two.
Yeah, you made it.
Um,
Two.
so that means we're starting a new round of episodes.
I actually have some
And,
Fox Kids feedback if you want that first.
Do it.
Because we got
Yeah,
some
yes, let's do
in the
feedback
mailbag.
first. I didn't know we had any.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
do. And since it's Fox Kids, I want to do this before we moved on to what our next theme was. This one comes from our good friend Astigma82 on talking about the Beetlejuice episode. They say, hey, all, as a Tim Burton fan, I loved watching this show as a kid, and I always made sure not to miss the fun intro. Also, happy to point out that it features two stellar voice actresses and fellow Canadians, Alison Court and Tara Strong. I love your podcast, and I place it among my favorite movie and TV podcasts I listen to, alongside Film Sack, Gore, and Wait You Haven't Seen. Hey, that
Dang.
sound familiar. Thank you for all the great content and helping make great communities where we can celebrate the things we love. And we're happy
Oh, thank
to
you,
do it for you,
Stigma.
Stigma. Yeah, always. That warms my heart. Thank you for the email. And if you want to warm my heart like a Stigma just did, those were the days show at gmail.com.
That's right. You can also get us on Twitter at Those Days Show, or find us on any of us on the social medias and send us questions or feedback or anything. We love to get that kind of stuff.
I was gonna say I got quite a few likes and responses on threads for this one.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah, like our buddy Christian Scott said, the best of the absolute best. I still quote it way too often, according to my wife at least.
Oh, I definitely do. Like
Oh, yeah.
Spoon, for the longest time, my status message on I think it was might have been AOL Instant Messenger and whatever other ones I used for a number of years was just Spoon.
Yeah.
Sure.
I love using that. There's a lot of quotes from this. The Yuletide one.
That's so good.
It's just it was so well written. Ben Edlund, underrated.
Yep.
Obviously, he did some good stuff with the Venture Brothers. He also wrote a couple episodes of Firefly. He wrote
sure.
he co-wrote the screenplay for Titan AE. So he did some
Nice.
stuff you've heard of. Was there any other feedback there, Audie? Or was that the main one?
That was the main one. I mean, just a bunch of likes and stuff.
Nice.
The art
More-
was real
more than
good.
usual.
I mean,
The
the
art
art
was
was
very
real
good.
good.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
It's real good.
As always.
So our next round of episodes we're going to mix it up a little bit. We don't have a specific theme for this one. We're doing host choice. So we're all going to pick something that we want to do that maybe
'Cause
doesn't fit in anything else, or
Yeah.
we're just going to bully the others into watching it.
Yes.
I've got a show. I brought this up largely because I have a show that I've been trying to wedge in here since we started, and so help me, we're gonna do it.
Oh,
Excellent.
I'm so excited.
Nice.
Gonna have to wait to find out what that is, but I'm excited to find out what it is.
Yes.
Because
As am I.
Audie, you're going to kick us off with our dealer's choice.
Yeah. So I was trying to think of something that I've wanted to do and what we could do, and I decided to just go for one. We're gonna stay in the animation realm, and I'm gonna bring Mighty Max.
Mighty
Ooh.
Max.
Yes, the cartoon series based on the toy line. We'll get into it, but Mighty Max. So there are episodes on YouTube. We'll watch one called "Let Sleeping Dragons Lie."
All right.
Huh.
So
Well,
this is one of
Color me intrigued.
my favorite cartoons ever. I remember having multiple discussions about it with friends in elementary school, just talking about it, or not elementary school. It was high school, but we were nerds, so we talked
Yeah.
about this kind of stuff, and it was just, yeah, we'll get into it, but yeah, it's a heck of a cartoon, and I'm excited to bring it.
I vaguely remember
Awesome.
what I'm looking at here, and now I'm very excited. The name
Very
did not
cool.
ring a bell. The art did.
Yeah.
Yeah, the name definitely rings a bell. I'm curious to see if I remember this show at all, because I definitely remember it existing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh,
can't
gonna be
wait.
great.
And I love sticking with the animation, because animation is something that I
It's so
adore.
good.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun. Alrighty. Well, that is going to be next episode, Mighty
Alright.
Max, as we do a round of dealer's choice. Host choice. I can't wait.
Speaking of host choice, I'm a plug. So that no one
Oh,
gets mad at
yes.
me.
Oh,
I
yes.
don't do
Hey.
a
Please do.
plug. So I'm
Get
gonna
it.
do a plug.
Plug it.
Uh, Many of you may listen to my other show, Aquilo.
And
If you don't, what
you
is wrong
should
with
be.
you? Please just listen to the show. But very exciting. On August 1st, we are going to be launching an Inkshares campaign to get season 1 published in book form. It will be edited, it will be tweaked, there will be some continuity things fixed, there will be some extra details, there will be recipes in the back of the book.
Yes.
It's going to be a big deal. And we need all of the help we can get. It's a crowdfunding platform, not quite like Kickstarter where they just give you money and you go off and do your thing. Basically what this is we campaign and we get pre-orders, and once we hit a pre-order threshold, that says that there's enough interest in it for it to be worth their time. So that will launch on August 1st, and right now you can see all of the info we have if you go to aquilo.com/book. We have a little announcement trailer on YouTube and all our socials and all that. And yeah, so it's very exciting. I'm very exciting. aquilo.com/book.
Excellent.
Get it?
Definitely check that out. We want this to happen. We're
Yeah,
gonna
we
make this
do.
happen. We're gonna make this happen.
We are.
Aquilo.com/book. All right. So yeah, that's gonna wrap things up. Next week we are talking Mighty Max. I'm excited. I'm excited for that, Audie. Good choice.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Just wait.
So until then, until next time, for Stephen, for Amy, for Audie, I am Travis, and spoon.